Hey guys, what is up and welcome to another season 3.5 or 4, whatever you want to call it, video. So the Masteries just recently, the new ones at least, just recently hit the live servers. And I'm sure many of you are scratching your heads over the Masteries and thinking, where do you put your points in for like middle lane or AP or AD middle or ADC or jungle and all that stuff. So I'm here to hopefully help you guys a bit on that path. Now keep in mind, these aren't exactly final, but this is pretty much where I'm at right now, and this is what I'm using right now, so hopefully this can give you a better idea to maybe make your own, or you can just completely copy mine, that's fine too. So I'm going to be talking about every single role and all the types of masteries that I feel like will benefit that role and why I kind of chose this path and all that stuff. Also in the description below, I want to put down timestamps that you can click on to jump between this video. So if you're only looking to see the masteries that I do, for example, for ADC, you can click on the timestamp below and it'll take you right to that part of the video and you can just see that part. Anyways, without further ado, I want to start off with the middle lane. So looking at this one, AP middle. I went 2109. It's pretty self-explanatory. I do like double-edged sword. I mean, it's more damage, and if you're able to carry yourself properly, so if you're like a TF or even if you're a Fizz, you want to deal a lot of damage. I actually have another one for Fizz, but this is mainly for casters. Butcher is very important because it helps you CS a lot easier. And this is pretty self-explanatory. You go straight down. This obviously, all of these are pretty explanatory. 3 increased damage, 6% magic pen, all good stuff. These ones are the questionable ones. So this one's pretty useful, I think. It helps your allies kind of do more damage to the target you're trying to CC and kite away. They can burst them down faster. Spell weaving and blade weaving. This one is pretty interesting. Someone like Orianna or someone like Kale will benefit from this quite greatly. Even Akali, actually. But I still think it's pretty good because in the early laning phase, auto attacks are your main source of damage. And then this also kind of, in return helps your spells do a bit more damage and vice versa. Keep in mind that blade weaving is spell damage, or rather spells, not necessarily magic damage. So it doesn't have to be a spell that does magic damage, it's just a spell. Keep that in mind. And of course I go in here for the meditation, for strength of spirit. This is pretty self-explanatory. You can pretty much switch this to this if you wish, it's personal preference, or you can switch these ones if you don't like this path into these two, which I don't think is that good personally. I don't think Alchemist and Culinary Mastery are that good, but that's the thing right there. And then AD middle, more or less the same thing, but of course switching to the AD side, again, this time I go for this. I like the cooldown reduction a lot more than this. Assassins don't really need attack speed, like a Zed doesn't really need that much attack speed. I mean, it's nice, but I'd rather have the CDR, same with the Fizz, things like that. Actually, Fizz won't apply here, won't he? Well, like Talon, I guess. You're not going to be standing there auto-attacking with Talon. You want to go in there, jump in for the burst with your spells, and then, jump out, if you will. Executioner, of course, pretty important on Assassin AD middles. Other than that, it's pretty much straightforward down. You don't really build a lot of crit on assassins in the middle lane, so I don't get this because, it's more of just, again, you walk in there, you burst someone down with your spells, and you kind of get out. So that's what I have for that. Okay. And then let's look at a couple of special pages I have for special champions. First one I'm going to look at is Fizz. For Fizz, I have a very special page because he's a very special champion. He's an assassin AP champion. That's melee or melee. This is why I have this page. So I have this one, of course, makes him do 2% more damage, only taking 1% more damage. I think that's pretty worth. Cooldown reduction as useful as it can be. And then I go straight for all AP and AD that I can get here. You definitely want this. This one's, it's optional. You can definitely take this one out and maybe put a point in there instead, or, maybe here. I put it in here just because, I feel like someone like Fizz is going to be going in there for quite the close encounters, and getting the kill and being able to get a bit of HP back and mana might be just that, extra little bit that you need to maybe get out alive or something. Other than this, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. These obviously are very important. They help each other out. So Fizz, every time he casts a spell, his auto attacks will do more damage, which is pretty important for him with his WQ, and vice versa. So that's pretty much what I have for that. And then you have Rise. He's also a very special champion because the utility tree actually has pretty useful things for mana champions. Champions that like having a lot of mana. And since we know Rise is pretty much the core AP middle that does like to build a lot of mana and scale off of mana, in a sense, this is pretty important. So I go 15-0-15. You get all the core things that you need. So again, double-edged sword. You get cooldown reduction. This is to help last hit a bit. You can take this out and put it in there, I guess, if you want, but or somewhere else. Doesn't matter. I put it there. Mental Force, AP standard, good stuff there. I don't really want this on him because, I don't know, I don't really care about my attack damage with him that much. So this is more than enough for me. Auto attack every now and then, but that's just mainly to increase my spell damage in the early phase. And then you want to go here. This because you get mana regen and mana or HP regen based on how much mana you have. And of course, as a Rise, you'll probably have a lot of mana. The main thing I went in here for is this, the 5% increased mana, so that's pretty cool. I mean, our Rise obviously wants as much mana as possible, which is why I went here. And plus, you know, always good to have CDR on Rise, so this can help just a bit as well. Alright, so let us jump into the top lane. So this is the same one I used for top lane as well. For assassins, like maybe, I don't know, a Riven or something in the top, because this gives good defense over here. You know, you have, this is obviously laning phase oriented, so you have block and unyielding, which completely just reduces damage you take from champions. This is not that good, but it's better than these two, I think, for laning. And then Veteran Scars and Juggernaut are just in general pretty damn good. So again, this is what I would take for someone like a Riven or a Zed top lane, you know, an AD top lane, maybe a Wukong. But I also have another page for my top lane. This is this. So this may be someone like a Nasus, maybe someone like a Darius, you know, those tanky ADs that you want, maybe a Malphite even, I don't know. Actually, Malphite would probably want to go not in here, but in here for the mana regen, but I don't know, it's kind of situational. Again, this is for tanky ADs. You get some damage from here, so you get, you know, cooldown reduction again. If you're tanky, you probably don't really want attack speed since you're a tank, really. That's all you do, right? You just tank shit up. Butcher to last hit better. If you want, you can always definitely replace this with this. That's perfectly obvious. You know, that's actually probably a better idea. You probably want to replace Butcher with double-edged sword. But again, that's pretty much optional. And then Brute Force in this for that bit of AD, you know, in the laning phase to help you out. And then other than that, you go just straight tank. You know, again, for the laning phase, this helps out a lot. These three are pretty important. Then you have armor for the laning phase. Obviously, if you're up against an AP top lane, which, you know, you'll probably want to switch this out, and instead of this, you want to maybe put points into this instead. That's obviously situational. And then, you know, you just get a lot of AP AD shit here. I mean, I don't get this one. This is pretty. You can definitely swap something out for this. I'm not really sure what, to be completely honest. You can probably take away this stuff maybe and put that in there instead. It all depends on the champion you're playing. Personally, I don't know. If you're Nasus, you probably want this. If you're not, then this might be good. I just think this one, Perseverance is so good. I think that's a pretty bomb skill, especially in the laning phase. That's really nice. This is also pretty interesting. I threw that in there just for the, you know, for giggles. But this is pretty much what I would go. That, you know, you can obviously switch this around just a bit. Maybe just completely take this out and instead put these 4 points into this instead. But then again, you won't be able to move down. So never mind. I don't know. You can play around with it, but this is what I would probably go with at the moment. And that's what I have for top lane. So next is ADC. This one's pretty interesting. I have two, as you can see. One's for ADC auto attacks, one's for ADC spells. First, let's go in here. This page is mainly for people like a Vayne, people like maybe a Draven, people like maybe a Tristana, maybe even, I don't know, people that rely on auto attacks. I can't think of them right now, but Tristana and Vayne, the first ones that come to mind. Mainly champions that just want to auto attack and only rely on their auto attacks to do the main source of damage. So this is why I get things like, you know, as you can see here, you know, double-edged sword, pretty cool. You go straight down the AD path, pretty standard. You get this for obviously as an ADC, you'll be critting quite often, most likely, or you should be. Butcher to help you last hit. Feast, you know, even more sustain in lane with your most likely Dorans and or runes that give you a life amp. You know, your I just can't think of the name right now. The Quints that give you a life amp. Executioner, only 2 points out of 3. I did that because I want to put a point in here, I think. You can definitely play around this a bit if you wish. But this is what I would do for this. And of course, you go in here for, since you are someone that relies on auto attacks more, you don't really care about mana regen that much, so I just went in here for more sustain kind of in lane, and for at least HP wise, and just be a bit more tanky. Then, if you're playing an ADC like a Lucian, someone like an Ezreal, someone like maybe like a Corki, even, you know, maybe a Draven. Actually, I'm not sure if Draven, if his Q counts as a spell. I'm not 100% sure. But this is where the path you want to go on. These champions obviously use more mana, which is why I went into utility instead for the mana regen. You can play around this as well. Again, I don't think Alchemist and Culinary Mastery is all that good, but for an ADC, it's not too bad, I guess. It's not that good either. But the main difference here is obviously I don't have any executioner points, but instead of that, I put the 2 points into this. And this is what I mean by spells. Not only do you go in here for the mana regen, oh boy, for the mana regen, but you also go in here because these two obviously will help you quite a bit. Since you cast a lot of spells, it'll make you do more damage. And since you do a lot of auto attacks, it'll also make your spells do more damage. Helps each other out quite a bit on champions like Lucian. So that's what I would do for that. Then we're going to jump into support. So support is right here. The first one I'll talk to you guys about is, actually I don't want to talk about this one first. I want to talk about this one. Support aggressive. So this is the support page you want to go if you want to really go, you know, ham, if you want to really show dominance in lane. This one obviously you have to make sure you know what you're doing. It's a bit risky of a page. But if you know what you're doing, if you know how to play support well, if you know how to be aggressive like with Annie or like maybe Zyra or something, this is a pretty good page. I go into 9 offense here just for the extra damage. As you can see, extra AP. This obviously helps your ADC since your spell increases allied champions damage. So, you know, you damage them up and your ADC does 3% more damage. Why not? Let's just start 1% more damage. Why not? It's more damage. And then you have spell weaving, which again, damaging enemy champion with the basic attack, which, you know, you should be doing if you're a ranged champion like an Andy, will make your spells do more damage as well. Pretty useful stuff. But then, of course, you go in here. So, I don't get this because it's actually pretty useless. 1.5% movement speed really doesn't mean anything. Then, Scout's pretty useful. Mana regen's pretty useful. This you don't really want because you won't be probably stacking that much mana. Other than this, I think this page is pretty self-explanatory. I don't see why you'd want any of these 3 as a support, nor do I see why you want this one. This one's pretty useful. You can maybe switch a point out for this instead somewhere if you wish. But other than that, I feel like support is pretty standard over here. Then you have the support Tanky. This is if you're playing like a Leona, maybe like an Alistair, even maybe a Nunu. Someone that's tanky, someone that wants to be in the enemy ADCs or support's face. You go 13, 17, so 0, 13, 17. Pretty cool stuff. Obviously you want this for the reduced damage, since you obviously will be soaking up some damage for your ADC, and just as you dive in, recovery, of course, you know, all this stuff, just standard tanky stuff. I'll put 1 point in this for the armor, because, you know, you do have flat armor runes, right? So, you know, that does kind of help you out there. And I put 3 points into magic resistance. Now you might be wondering, you know, why wouldn't you want just more points in this? Because again, you have flat armor runes. You should at least if you're support, a tanky support. This is a lot more useful because think about it. What's the main source of damage in the early phase of the bottom lane? It's the support. And what supports are there? There's Lulu, there's Sona, there's Soraka, there's Annie, there's Zyra. And what do they all have in common? They all deal magic damage, which is why this is a lot more useful in the laning phase. So put 3 points into this. And then this page is pretty much about the same. Obviously you can't go as far into this, and then I decided to go, you know, this sort of path. It's not too bad. I think it's pretty good. But that's what I would do for that. And then finally we have the jungle pages. So first I'll show you guys my jungle defense page, 9210. This is assuming you're obviously an AD jungler. Put points into this. This time I actually finally got this one. You know, attack speed's pretty useful for jungler. And then you just get regular AD damage and butcher obviously to do more damage. And then obviously you don't go this because you're mainly in the jungle, so you get the pretty much the opposite version of this, which is this for the jungler. And you go straight down. You know, you can obviously switch this around a bit if you wish. You know, this is, I don't know, I put this in just because I think it's pretty useful. I don't know how useful it is, but right now I'm just kind of throwing it in there just for the sake of it. I don't know what else I'd want to put it in. This is, I think, too situational. Obviously, if they have no one that will be critting you often, then you don't really care about this. So if they just have an ADC, they'll crit. It's like whatever. If they have a Trinity Mirror, then maybe you want to put this in. And yeah, that's pretty much how that one looks like. And then there's also the Assassin Jungler, which is this, that carry jungler. It's pretty much the complete opposite. This time I'm going 2190. Again, get the pretty useful jungler stats here, which is these two, and then more HP and regen. And then you go straight just regular damage. Butcher, of course, to do more damage in the jungle. Attack speed as usual. And just the standard AD path over here. So that's pretty much what I have for the jungle, guys. Or rather, for all my masteries, for that sake. I mean, again, these are still in the works. These are not necessarily final. But this is what I'm working with right now. This is what I like so far. Again, use this as a guideline, you know, maybe get a better idea of how you should put points in, or you can just completely copy it. That's fine with me. I don't really care. But I hope this video has helped you guys out just a little bit, and I wish you luck in the preseason and the upcoming season 4. Peace, guys.